right, let's do this. I forgot the music again. I did have entertainment. If you're on my subscription page, you know that I had a puppy come into my life. And I have been in week 1 of puppy. It has been so fun. So if you hear another little vocal fuzzy thing, it's my new little squish. Hi. So good to see all of you. If I ever meet you in real life, you'll have to like give me your name, because I start associating different stories and different things with some of your names, and some of them aren't your actual names, which I find funny. I'll be like, oh, you're that person. Yeah, new squish. He is so cute, so cuddly, so much love, and just so, he's like pure puppy. And I am obsessed. Sleep is not how it normally is. He's actually really good. We're doing all the training right now. Oh, thank you. He's so cute. Billy is still not a big fan, but they're getting better. Billy was mad at me all week, so that was fun. How do you explain to a cat that he's not being replaced and he gets to keep all of his stuff, and that the new puppy is going to be something he loves later? It's just really not settling into his mind right now. Hi, Mommy. My mom just joined us. I got to talk to her earlier today. We were talking because this is such an interesting format, and it serves a purpose once we get me on task. But if you have any, I'm throwing around some ideas on how to get a different feel to this. And it may just be group stuff later. Hi. All right. But it's so good to see you all here. And hi, everyone. I'll send all of your love to Billy. He needs all the love that he can get. He's struggling emotionally right now. Billy's my cat, if you don't know. Billy is a Persian cat. And he thinks he's human, and so he's having a really hard time with the puppy. I said puppy because I was reading Duffy. Hi, I know you. With the puppy situation. He's doing good though. He does have a little bit of difficulty with change, but he's traveled so much and he's done so much that he's hanging in there. But poor guy. He's just not having it. He's like, who is that and when does he leave? Yeah, now he's got 2 friends. So he's got his other boxer friend, which he grew up with the boxer. I had a boxer before I ever got Billy. His name was Jax. Some of you know him. So Billy grew up with a boxer, a really big, dark brindle boxer who was an absolute sweetheart. So Billy kind of bullied my dog. And then Jax passed away, and I was just with Billy for the longest time. I became a cat lady. Absolutely fell in love with him. And then just have been wanting a puppy again. So I went out and found one. And my parents actually had Dobermans. That was the dog they had kind of growing up. And so I guess it was a little bit in my blood. Can you have a dog preference in your genetics? Yeah, so he's a little Doberman. He's so cute. So cute. All right, enough about all my little fuzzy friends. I think we've given enough time here to get going. There was a quote that I wanted to read today before we get into the question. If you do have a current question that you want to ask, I will be watching. And we can kind of see how it goes today. Okay, so the quote, let me find it. Here it is. And this is a quote by Miles Davis, and I love it so much. It says, when you hit a wrong note, it's the next note that makes it good or bad. And this is so relevant when we're in the conversation of your life is your medicine. And so if you're new here, or if you're here, we're just going to start using repetition to saturate your psychology with this way of thinking. So you're in this little bubble here with me, and in this bubble, we are coming from a premise of a truth. So even though the rest of the world of medicine exists, you are in a bubble where we think differently. We ask different questions. We see the body differently. We value things very differently, even if our language is similar to what we hear kind of in the echoes outside of this bubble. So in this bubble, kind of sit into your body knowing that your body is right and your symptoms are the healing. And that doesn't mean that we don't do anything and we just positively think or try to change our perspective about how we're feeling. We are under the understanding and the practicality that your body is showing you the effect of a cause, and the cause is your entire life. So let's just take today, for example. Your entire day up until this point is what has come in and had a conversation with your physiology and biochemistry to produce a certain set of chemistry that's in circulation right now in your blood. And so that is, depending on how much your attention, if I've grabbed enough of your attention, maybe you're not feeling as much of your body, or if you're experiencing a lot of symptoms, maybe they're a little bit louder than somebody that's not experiencing a lot of symptoms. So all of these different things are factoring in and feeding into this moment and creating a physiological outcome that's literally in circulation in your blood. And it changes moment to moment, breath to breath, feeling to feeling, person to person. If something happens in the room right now with you, even you turning on this device and being exposed to this light is changing hormones, changing neurotransmitters. If we make you feel any certain emotion, and then we get to determine how long that is in circulation based on how long you experience that, all of this is dancing in you. And it is so brilliantly complicated. But the simple promise is that you don't have to know about any of it for it all to be working for you. And that is what I fell in love with, and I fell in love with it over and over again. And even, in a world of information overload, I think it's a very important truth to reiterate and to really let saturate yourself of everything is working for you, even the things that you don't even kind of understand. And if you can find the truth of that and really see it and not just let it be, an intellectual idea, but actually see the truth of it, spend enough time with your own thoughts, with your own thinking, with your own questioning to go to the depths of these things and make it make sense to you. Go and try to find if there's any angle of it that doesn't scream a truth to you, and go see where it leads you. And when you do this, it's going to feel differently versus I want to believe something. When you actually go into it and then you implement it through living, right? And that's what we're going to go into next, of where this all kind of fits in. It becomes just as reliable as, trusting that gravity does what gravity does. You don't have to exert a lot of effort every single day hoping that gravity works today. Why? You've got such great evidence, right? You walk, you're able to move things, you can put a glass down, you see things fall, right? You might have had a fall. So the truth is always there, even if your attention is taken away from it. So the body also runs on other truths, right? And so when you come in this little bubble with me, the body is always right. It is showing you a mirror reflection of the life that you're experiencing. And when we use the word experiencing, you have to know that the complexity comes from the brilliance that is a human being. So you have to factor in mind, emotions, spirit, soul, and body, which is it's going to kind of communicate with all those things, but it also has to translate the physical world. So when you come to your life is your medicine, that is a truth. It's not only if you do healthy things, your life is your medicine. No, the way to really hear that phrase is your life is your medicine, no matter what you have in your day, no matter how your day felt, and no matter what you tried to manipulate within that day. So every action, every inaction, every thought, every feeling, every emotion, every piece of food, every supplement, every prescription, every time you were around a human, every thought that you thought when you were alone, every single thing comes in and communicates to your physiology. There's nothing that is not accounted for. And again, you don't have to even know all of that. You just have to start paying attention to how you feel. And you always simplify it down. If anyone did one of my courses back, I can't remember when we did it, like 2 summers ago, kind of talked about how you use how do you feel as, you know, the starting point. If you feel good, you probably don't have anything that you really need to investigate. If you don't feel good, that's what's going to start getting your attention. And so when you're in the world of what we call complex, I don't even like the word disease, but a group of symptoms expressing in your physical body, I like to call them healing expressions because it makes you ask more appropriate questions, because it's a more appropriate way to explain what's actually occurring. So when you're having healing expressions, or what we have previously known as symptoms, they are what are telling you what's going on in your life. And so when it comes to the human body, remember, we've got to get our minds right so that the rest of everything else we talk about makes sense. You have to follow the rules of the physical planet that you're on. And then you also have to understand where things and factors like psychology, emotions, patterns, family, relationships come in and factor in too. So to simplify this, what I did was I created those master classes. So when I talk about truths and we talk about the steps and all of those things, those are what were put into those master classes. And the purpose behind those was to simplify the most fundamental, basic principles that are never going to change, but that are ever changing within a life. And what I mean by that is, we'll take the nutrition class because I think that's the one most of you have done. So those rules never change, but you change the rules every single day, right? Like when you get to the question, like, how's your mind? How's your heart? How are you feeling? The answer to that changes everything downstream. So that's why there are no 2 meals that you'll eat that are the same, because you would make 2 different decisions based off of if you're stressed out or really relaxed and had a lot of time, or upset or had a loss. You would choose different foods based off of that physiological state, because you would know that your psychology feeds into physiology. And so that's what I mean by the rules never change. Your body's always going to do what it does, but you have to come in and have the intelligence and the wisdom, right? Which is what I have provided in those classes, for you to start being able to dance with these truths and be like, okay, so the dynamic component is me. I'm the thing that needs to be paid attention to the most. These rules of how the body works within life is very straightforward. Just like if you get cut by something, you're going to bleed and it's going to scab. It follows the rules of healing. It's very predictable. So the part that's not predictable is you. And so that's why you are what's going to determine the differences in your actions day to day. And again, nutrition is the best example of this. It really starts showing you how you are what changes what you reach for. And so even just like that quote, like, was your action good or bad? Again, one day you reaching for a salad could be quote unquote good based off of, was it appropriate for your current physiological presentation? On another day, it might have been the thing that you shouldn't consume because you couldn't digest it. And neither one of those days is your body being wrong. And that's the biggest take home. If all of this seems too elusive right now, the biggest take home point is that your body is never wrong. And it's up to you to go and find out why it is right. And then if you don't like how you feel, change in a way that makes a true change in the body, right? And so we know this even with the example of like burning your hand or getting a sunburn. You have to change the action to change the effect. And then just like a burn, it's going to take time to repair the effect. And so that's where we get kind of confused and overwhelmed, is how much of this is repairing the effect of a previous cause that we have eliminated, and how much is the perpetual adding on of this day is also part of the burn, right? So when you think of it this way, the reason I did those master classes was to simplify it down to remove variables. Because when you look at a human being, it's very complex. And just like 15 different things can create the sensation of constipation in a human body. You don't need to do all 15 things every single day, but you do need to handle the most apparent, most obvious ones that without fail would always, like, it would be a 1-to-1. If you don't do this and you don't do this, this should happen, right? Just like if you get a cut, you should get a scab. All of the symptoms in the body, you have to start seeing that way. And where I see people getting really confused is they try to put in categories the appropriateness or the rightness of a physical body. So the body is right when it makes a scab. Good job, body. The body is wrong if it makes antibodies. Bad body. The body is right if it if it digests food. Good job, body. The body is wrong if it has any type of gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea. Body is wrong. So it's not. You have to get rid of that thinking entirely. Body is right. And now what? I don't want to feel what I'm feeling. Perfect. Now we've got to start removing variables. Are you doing the most obvious things, right? Like eating when you shouldn't be eating. All of those things that we cover in the nutrition course. They're so, like, when you understand it, it's so obvious. Of course, a body that didn't need to have food put in it is going to have repercussions when you put food in it. When it doesn't, it should never have any food in it. Of course you should. And that's the perfection of it. It should have those repercussions, right? And so when you start seeing the body this way, it requires a different level of thinking. It requires a different level of question asking. And I met a new friend last night at the ocean, and we were having this conversation. And when you only focus on the variables that can be sold, nutrition, supplements, herbs, prescriptions, water, even like things that fall into like exercise programs, stuff like that, when you're only focusing on that, you're only focusing on 20% of what actually interfaces with the human body. And what you see in the world is that's what we're obsessing over. And we're not even getting that right, because we're putting more of the power and more of the potential in the stuff, right? And so that's not to say that the stuff is bad. Organic food is not bad. You know, everything, I don't view anything as bad, because that type of language really starts making it complicated for the intellect, your psyche. So how I like to look at it is everything is a spectrum of choices. And so just take food, for example. There's a spectrum of choices, right? And the appropriateness depends on the person that's about to consume the food. So to ask a broad general question to generalize all humans, are fruits healthy to eat? The next question in your thinking in this little bubble with me should be, well, it depends. Perfect. That's a very true answer. Depends on what? Depends on the person. Okay? So we're not talking blood type, we're not talking any of that stuff. Depends on what that person is experiencing in that moment right before they reach for the food. That's an appropriate answer. So does it make any sense to say, yes, you should eat this and you should eat this? No, when you're in that world, you're talking about the nuance of where it is in the spectrum of if a human being, like I say in that nutrition class, if we cut off the head and just had a physical body and a 1-to-1, this does this in the human body, right? But you're never going to get that in life. You will never have the outcome of just a pure input, because you're always going to have emotions, you're always going to have relationships, you're always going to have your past, you're always going to have your beliefs. And so that's when the fun of this starts really coming in. And that's why I always say, when you follow those rules, the point is not for the rules to heal you. The point is for those to eliminate variables and to give you more bandwidth and more of your conscious mind to utilize in the addressing of the other 80%, if you will. And again, all statistics are, just take it with a grain of salt, but generally speaking. So to use your conscious mind to actually investigate in the direction of what actually needs to be handled. We use majority of our thinking trying to manipulate with supplements and compounds and herbs and creams and potions and water devices and like light devices, and it's just, that's not even going to get you the return that even remotely matches the investment, not just financially, emotionally, psychologically, and time. You're giving up so much time managing stuff when the stuff is just trying to manipulate your body out of the effects of the life that's actually being lived. And so this is where you get that feedback mechanism of, if you're somebody who's perfected your whole entire life to the degree where you're always thinking about it. You're always thinking about what foods to have, which ones you can't, why this food is bad. If you're if something is wrong with everything because of how aware you are, then you've got to know now your additional input into your physiology that is very corrosive in nature and not healing at all. So that's when you get into the conversation of, how healthy are you really? If you are so rigid and so stressed out about the micromanaging and the knowing of every little thing and the process, the routines, if I don't have this, I can't ever use that. I will never touch that. Any food that even that type, just feel how it feels even to say it. So in this bubble with me, everything is what it is. So you get the truth of whatever you consume. That's what we talked about in that nutrition class too. If you take 3 shots of tequila, you get the outcome of 3 shots of tequila within your current physiological state. So you get the truth of everything. But what I see is people are creating a whole new level of, toxicity through obsessive knowing. And when you really go into it, we go into it again in that nutrition class, unless you're walking around with a chemistry set, you probably don't know everything that you think that you know, right? And then it gets into the conversation where we have to let the conversation of the mind enter the room and be like, how much of the chemistry that is corrosive to your body is now being created solely by you, and then you're gonna go at the thing that's actually now the new problem. So when you look at the human body, you've got to just simplify. So simplify. So let's start again. In this little bubble, we know that the body is always right. It doesn't mean we like how it feels, but it's always right. And it's showing us the truth about our life. And so if we are a mess, right? And a mess is just, you've got a lot of symptoms, you got a lot going on, you don't feel good, then you've got to clean up the mess. The easiest way to clean up the mess is to remove the things that you can remove the easiest first. So that's why we follow the rules. Follow the rules. Remove variables. And the way to remove a variable, we talked about this in another live, is to be massively committed to the implementation of those rules. There are no days off. The more symptoms you have, a day off doesn't even make any sense, right? When you're thinking this way. So why? If you need a day off, then you actually need to spend time in your thinking on how you invest in your life and what is actually valuable. Okay? And so then when you remove those variables, you should see a drastic change in physiology. Then you continue following the rules forever, ideally, right? You just get more artistic in how you do it, and you think about them a lot less because they're just second nature. And then you start managing, like we talked last week, what is right in front of you? What are you feeling? What is actually going on that's creating such disturbances within your physiology that is being translated into your biochemistry, and it's staying in circulation for so long that it's creating cellular changes that then cause tissue changes. And this is how the body works, right? So those of you that are asking about the rules, this will be saved, and so you can kind of go back, but just to reiterate, when I say the rules, I'm just trying to simplify down all of the things that I cover in the master classes, because those were the things that I had to cover with every single patient I ever worked with, regardless of if they were a doctor, a nutritionist, no matter what field they came in, because we just weren't taught that in school. It's not that, again, it's not against the people, it's the information, and it's not that the information isn't available, but we're not using it in an appropriate way. We're using it, again, the body is wrong, let's fix it, instead of, the only way we even know about any of this stuff is because we've studied the body. But now we're the experts on why, like on our stories on why it does. Other conversation for today, because we want you to. Okay, coming back online. I'm not sure what happened there. So what we want is to change your life, but you're going to have to change your life through action, right? And thinking is a big component of that, because your belief system is going to dictate what you invest in day to day. And if you are still on the fence of, because most people that I see, they've tried everything. They've gone through all of allopathic medicine, traditional medicine. They've gone through the integrative, then they've moved over to the holistic, and then some are doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And then what happens is you see a belief system just getting deteriorated. And then when you realize how important the belief system is, you start seeing how detrimental all of this information is. Because we've got experts on everything, and everyone's putting out with such conviction and such confidence, even if behind the scenes they're not living it with the confidence that they're presenting it. And so what a lot of people are doing is they're trying to find confidence, right? Because they don't really know what to believe anymore. And so if that's you, the best way to do it is not to go borrow somebody else's confidence. So like even in this space here with me, don't borrow my confidence in this and try to white knuckle your way into, or even like guilt tripping your way or whatever, judging yourself because you don't believe it. To believe it, you've got to live it. And everyone wants to believe it and not live it, and that really creates a huge mismatch between the mind and the body. And so you want those two to be in alignment. You need to be living what you say you believe in. And if those two things don't align, then it's up to you to clean up one or the other. Because there can't be incongruences even within just those two simple things. If you say you believe it, it should be in your life, right? Remember what we said last time. It's not what you talk about. You don't talk about what you believe. You live what you believe. So go and be very honest with yourself and take inventory of, okay, if I was just, coming in and analyzing me as a person from start to finish, what does it appear that I believe in? Not if I asked her questions, no, or asked him questions. No, it's not a conversation. It's if you watched how you lived, what does that person believe in? Then that's when you can start really understanding yourself and knowing that no matter what, the cool thing, and that we just want to keep reinforcing, is even when you're confused, your body's not. But your experience of its truth is what's going to waver. So even when you don't believe that a body can heal a cut, it's still going to heal a cut the way a body heals a cut, because that's in the code. But your interpretation, your story about it, is what's going to change how you feel about the experiencing of it. Feel that for a second. Could you freak out about a cut? Yeah. Especially if you had a lot of other inputs coming in. If you just observed it, probably not. But how many of you are just observing and trying to think through on your own the practicality of a human body? No, because we've left that to the experts. Only doctors know about the human body, or people who have spent a lot of time in research, or health experts, instead of, spending time to be like, well, what actually makes sense, right? What actually makes sense? What is reproducible in my own life? Let me be the experiment of, I need this to make sense, and I'm not just going to spend all the time in my head when what I'm trying to learn about is this physical body that shows me, right? When you're cold, does it show you that you're cold? Or does it have a hard time because you forgot to study about thermodynamics before you showed up? No. If you're cold, right? And then there's more conversation depending on, because everyone wants to go into but what if a person's cold because of their hormones? That's still part of this conversation, but we would need more time to go into it to make it make sense to you. But to keep it simple, because that's where you need to be. You're not supposed to be an expert to have beautiful, radiant health. That doesn't make any sense. And then if you want to be the one that's like, well, that's easy for you to say because you're a doctor. Well, hold on. There are people that don't even have access to these devices, to anything to teach them about healing and wellness and all of those things, and they are thriving. So it's not the information that's making us well. And I would actually start to question, even what I've done on my own, you can do whatever you want with you, that the amount of information is now part of the pathology, right? Because I've never seen people so confused, so scattered in their belief, so detached from the only thing that's proving itself to them every single day, but we don't even see it. Because that's the thing, that if you get down to it, what has actually proven itself to you? Your practitioner? Well, let's think through that again. Because everyone's like, well, I'm here because of a surgery. The surgeon was a component. What had to survive and even know how to repair the skin, much less everything else, was your body. So again, if we're being, and this is not, we tend to be a little bit sparkly. I like to be sparkly and optimistic and all of those words that like to be put on this conversation, but that's not what we're talking about here. It's raw practicality. Absolutely bare bones. Pay attention to what's actually going on. Let's not put a cute story over it, but what's the truth of the truth? And that's how I even got to all of this medicine, because I was like, none of this makes any sense. My algorithms don't fit the person in front of me, because if I ask one more question, this is an entirely different case. It has nothing to do with thyroid hormones. The thyroid hormones were an expression of, something very personal in their life. When we handled the life, the hormones changed because they are an effect. They're not the cause. Your hormones are not the cause. Your antibodies are not the cause. Your gut is not the cause. Your digestion is not the cause. Those are the effects still. The cause is the totality of the experiencing of your life, from what you put in your body, put on your body, put in your mind, how you experience, how you filter, how you translate, how you interpret. And so, again, the reason we're here is because we're saying, okay, if we don't have the luxury of, if I'm trying to squeeze out my brain and give it to you so that you can start thinking on your own, but you have this, right? You have access to all of this, because I had to go through all the education to learn that wasn't it. And so then I had to get really simple in my thinking to unravel it to get to here. And so that's why I'm saying, don't make it complicated, make it simple, but look at what you're dealing with and then ask beautiful questions. And my favorite thing is always make sure you know where you're starting from. Because that's, again, because everyone's like, well, we're all saying the same thing, but we're not. Because if you're saying the body only heals, but then you're going to treat the hormones, well, then you just contradicted the previous statement. If you're going to say the body only heals and we all need to eat extreme restricted diets, you just countered what you just said before. So these are these little tiny things where you might not even know, but your body's going to pick up on, is it true or is it not? Well, those two things can't coexist, so both of them must be not true. And that's where it matters what you're pouring into your mind. It matters how you're living day to day. It matters how confused you are. And if you're massively confused, you don't need to add more to the mess, right? Think about a messy house. If it's a mess, don't invite more mess in. Close the doors and be like, okay, this is the mess I'm with. It got out of control. It's very out of hand. It's very overwhelming. Now I've got to start getting rid of things. And how do you know what to get rid of? Start with what's right by you. What's right in front of you. Is it working? And think through it practically. Like I said, you don't have to think through it like an expert. Think through it like a kid that needs it to make sense. And that's a little bit sassy in there. Well, that doesn't make any sense, right? And that's how you can start chipping away in your own life, even if you don't want to take the master classes that I've done or whatever. You have access to this. There's no human body that's given any more or any less than any other human body. And you don't have to know anything about medicine, health, and wellness for your body to know exactly what it needs to do to not only keep you well, but to keep you alive. It's the expert. The brain is not the expert on survival. The body is. Right? The body is the expert, but our brain comes in and is compromised because of how much we need information to make us feel safe, which is a different conversation, right? And instead of getting the safety that you're wanting by going and consuming from people that seem super confident in what they're delivering, you're wanting some of their confidence. You're not wanting what they're giving necessarily. So go see it for what it is. Always question, like, what is this really? Like, what is this really? Why am I so obsessed with this source of information, this thing that I do every single day? Is it the information that's helping you? Or is it the borrowed confidence from the presentation? And you've got to know when you're in this space, there's a lot that's a presentation. A lot. And so don't go feed off of other people's confidence. Live a life that creates your own confidence. And think about it. Just don't put it on health and wellness, because everyone wants to make it super complicated. Put it on anything else. How would you get confident in surfing? By reading about it, by watching other people, by hearing how other people did it, by listening to experts and pros. And no, you're going to get confident by being massively uncomfortable, massively incompetent, massively, just insecure in your doing of that thing. And you're going to do it over and over and over and over and over until you gain the evidence that your brain needs to say, hey, it's not so bad. I can trust myself in this setting. But most people don't trust themselves because you're borrowing confidence from whoever is putting out the information. And unfortunately, we're in a mess because people are overconfident in their delivery of information that's not entirely true. Okay, and remember, we're not saying it's bad people, and we're saying that there's a difference between a right answer and a truth. And in this bubble, again, you're in a little bubble with me, we only care about truth, right? The practicality of implementing a truth. So then that comes to, how can you change your day? If you're still here, if you're still listening, you're investing your time, you're investing your attention. And I would even say you can kind of do an experiment right now. The intensity of your investment is going to determine the return on that investment. So if you're multitasking and doing a lot of things and I'm in the background, right? Then you're getting a certain percentage, right? If you're completely locked on, you're going to get a different physiological outcome, especially if these things help clean up or clear up things going on in you, right? And so, but either way, who is more important? Me on this talking screen? No, you. You could just have me going in the background just to fill space because it makes you feel a little bit more confident than you did when it was silence in your house and you were feeling what you were feeling in your body. Is it medicine? A little bit. Could we do more? Absolutely. How? When you get off of this, or when you find something that's valuable to you, you implement it. And you implement it day in and day out until you gain the evidence through the living of the things that are resonating with you, right? So it's got to be a lived experience. It can't be a learned experience. It can't be an intellectually accumulated experience. It's got to be this like, oh my gosh, this is about to be massively freaking uncomfortable. Well, the good news is you're already uncomfortable. So now what flavor of discomfort do you want? The type of discomfort that's going to keep everything the same, that's just going to be manipulate more and be an expert on all the different ways and types and strategies to manipulate your body, or to actually start being like, okay, right now I'm at a set point and I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to carry around the bags of supplements. I don't want to have to worry about every single thing that I put in my mouth, but I'm grateful for the awareness that I have, because it matters to the degree that it matters, and then it doesn't. But I matter 10, 100 million times more than any of the stuff I could ever accumulate. And we get so jazzed up about this when we start learning about placebo effect and quantum mechanics and quantum biology and quantum physics and all of those different things. Why aren't you living it though? It's not just something that happens in meditation. I can't stress that enough. You're using these things every breath of your life, and every time you give your attention and you're hyper focused to learning about a new supplement, a new herb, a new protocol, a new cream, a new peptide, you are losing access to the thing that could change it quicker than the acquisition of any compound. And I'm not saying something that's not a truth. All of research is supporting what I'm saying, but we're not using what would actually benefit us. Why? That's a totally different conversation, right? I'd have to go into you. I know why for me, right? And you just start asking yourself these truer questions. Not, do I need to change my diet again? No. Am I following the rules of what is required for a body to consume and digest and utilize food? Yes or no? Yes? Continue. No? Go change that. Done. Then you should not be thinking about food ever, 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 unless it's what can I make for my date tonight that's going to be so delicious, and how do I pair that with music and lighting and experience and sound and keep my puppy off of the table, right? That's something entirely different than I need to find every type of food that I can put in my body to make my body heal. That's not even true. And just think about how many words and the feeling of the words I had to give even to explain that. It's exhausting. And you need your energy to do all of these other things, and you need your energy just to enjoy life. That's the whole point, right? Why even be here if we're not going to enjoy a portion of the experiencing of it, right? Some would even argue you could enjoy the experiencing of all of it. Again, a different level of mind, but it's a possibility too. So clean up, simplify, and know that when you're on this app, just from what I've seen, especially if you're somebody who really consumes a lot of health and wellness, or uses it to feel good, it's not that you're wrong, but you've got to go see what the medicine you're actually reaching for. It's not the information. That starts adding to the clutter of your house. It feels good to hear somebody say something that they really believe in. Think about that. Why? Because you want to really believe in it. And how do you get to a point where you really believe in it? You've lived it so much that it seems absolutely absurd to not. So when you feel my confidence on this subject, it's not because I hope that it works or I read it in a book. It's because I've lived it every single day since I discovered it to now. And I have the privilege too of seeing other people live it and see it change, and see them stop and see the body react, and see them start again, and it changes, because that's just what your body does. You're ever changing, and that's part of the brilliance of it. Because even, the conversation of like, okay, well, I think somebody said it on the last live. So for 33 years, I've had the same thing. Okay, well then that means you haven't changed what the body needed to be changed. But I haven't been eating the same food for 33 years. I didn't say it was the food that needed to change. And if you change the food and perfected the food, and you still have the physiological state that hasn't changed, then you've removed a variable. The food wasn't the thing, right? And so for most people here, you've got a pretty good sample size of, I've tried this diet, 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 and my body just won't change. Okay? Keep what you've learned about organic, not organic, GMO, non-GMO, whole, real, living food, photons in food versus dead food. Keep all that stuff that you know. It can be useful if used appropriately. Use it appropriately now. It doesn't matter what you're consuming if your body doesn't need to be consuming food. So I'd go handle the rules first, then use your information that you've gathered on food to make the best decisions that you can. Why not? Why not? Just like you wouldn't choose the worst person to be in a relationship with, you choose the best one. Why? Because, right? Why not? Same thing with food. Of course, choose the best that life has to offer. Why? Why not? But to need it or else you won't be well, to need it or you can't heal, to need it or you won't live, that's not true. And we've got evidence on evidence if you need to actually go and find it for your intellect to see these things that we're clinging on to don't deserve the clinging. And if anything, they're keeping us so far away from what deserves our attention, our presence, and our time and our investment of our life. And you, again, It's not to say that there's not a difference between organic and non-organic. That's not the conversation here. I'm saying it doesn't matter if the body doesn't need to be digesting any food anyways, right? So there's, again, a spectrum of everything. In an ideal world, how would I do it? Especially if I had a lot to heal. Let's do it real quick. I would follow all of the rules, no days off, and I would find a way to braid them into my life in a way where I forget that I'm even doing them. I forget that I ever ate in a different way. And then I would go and I would choose the best that life had available to me. Not out of fear, not out of lack, but out of the gift and the abundance that life has to offer. And I would choose the best of what life had to offer where I was at, without overthinking or panicking, while following the rules of what my body has to do no matter what, right? And so I would combine the best of both worlds, and then I would use my mind, my beautiful intellect, my heart, my emotions, my will, my attention, to focus on the things that are so much greater than that. My relationships, why I do the things that I do, why certain things hit my emotions, why certain things squeeze my heart, why certain things scare me, why I'm drawn to certain things, why I'm repelled by certain things. How can I be well and okay no matter where you put me? That requires energy. That requires a level of mind. That requires a level of body to fuel it. And the dedication, and again, the commitment and the consistency is the gold. And that's what's often overlooked. I did it for 3 weeks. Do it for a life. See the difference, right? It's not, when you're using your life as medicine in an intentional way, it's not, I'm doing this until it goes away. That's one way to do it, but then the kicker there is when you change the formula, you change the outcome. So when you change, but then that's also the cool part, and something I've experienced with a lot of patients, maybe even some of you here, is the rigidity on how clean you had to be and how reactive you were totally changes when you're different. When you change, everything changes. So there may be a version of you in the beginning of your healing process that has to be a little bit more strategic with the foods that you choose while following the rules. And then as you move through it, you're going to see a different version of you that responds or has more energy to focus on your responses, your relationships, your mind, your patterns, and give time to that instead of researching food and supplements and stuff. And you're actually poured into the living of your life and focused on that and changing that. And then because that changes your emotions, that's going to change your hormones. That's going to change your neurochemistry. That's going to change your blood chemistry. That's going to change your cells and tissues. And then that version of your wellness is not going to have to play by the same rules of before. The rules will always apply, but the rules I'm talking about here are like, you're not going to have to eat that clean, right? And then you get to play with that of like, oh my gosh, like the freedom should increase as you heal, not decrease. If you got better, but your freedom has been shrunk, you're in the game of manipulation. If you have gotten better and your freedom has increased, you're dealing with truth. Truth sets you free. Truth in medicine sets you free from compounds, substances, anything man-made. It doesn't make you require more. Think about that. If you had a car and you took it to a mechanic and you had to have all of these things just to make it go and you always needed the mechanic, you're like, but your car works. Like, but I don't really want you driving around with me every single day, right? Put it on a body. You should be able to do more. You should be well and vibrant with less. And you should be more and more free, not just in the stuff that you are utilizing, but in your mind, in your heart, in your emotions, in your capacity to adapt and respond and experience. You should have a greater capacity, not a less. Not, I've got to avoid all these people because they push my buttons and my nervous system isn't regulated, and you're causing that dysregulation right now, right? So you've got to see how, if you're having to get more rigid, more closed off, more hidden away, more suppressed, more barriers put up in order to be well, be very, very aware of the trap that you're getting into, even if those methods are natural, especially if they're natural, because then it gets really confusing because you're like, but this is, again, healthy. That's a bigger conversation, right? Healthy according to what state, what interpretation, what condition? Is it better than this? Yes, but that doesn't apply to the person right now, right? Again, it's like, what are we doing with our questions? You can have a bunch of amazing answers that have absolutely nothing to do with anything that could ever change a life. And that's the truth that we're in. So don't just consume a bunch of good answers. If it's not an answer that came with you as the question, it doesn't really apply. And that's how you have to start seeing this. That's why your life is your medicine. You have to be the one in the driver's seat, and you're the one that's going to change it. And then you also have to be the one that takes the medicine and then changes the medicine. And you're the chemist, you're the chemistry, you're all of it. And when you actually see it, it should be liberating, because then it can be a playful thing, right? Even like when we talk about the rules don't make it to where you get to do less. It's how it even teaches you how to kind of break the rules intelligently, to where you can start being a little bit more strategic of like, okay, well, I'm breaking the rules tonight. Bring in the pizza that I know that I shouldn't be eating and I can't digest at this current physiological and psychological state that I'm in, but I'm going to eat it, right? And then you now know, increase all of those other steps to break the rules intelligently. Why? Why not? It's not to make this absolute perfected, just restricted life. It's, no, this is how your body works. This is going to be the effect if you break the rules. Let's play. These are your cards. Now, when you know what you're playing with, you get to play. And then that becomes fun, because it's like, no, I need the pizza, right? I talked about it like with my accident. I wanted the comfort of the food, even though I knew my body couldn't digest the food. And instead of freaking out about the symptoms I had when I had the food, I just knew it was going to happen. And you kind of have that like cute little sassy, like, I did that. That was me, right? Instead of, oh my gosh, my body's messed up and this is probably wrong, and fear. Let me go study. Let me go learn. Let me go. No. When you get into this way of living, you take massive responsibility of, no, I had no business eating that meal, but I wanted to. And so my I want to, I'm going to do it no matter what, is what I'm experiencing right now, because body said no. If you go through the rules, it said no. And I wanted to do it anyways, right? So that's when you get into this way of living where even you not following the rules empowers you. It gives you more freedom of like, no, right? I want to do this instead of following the rules. I know I'm a stressed out mess that's in a hurry right now, and I have no business eating food. So then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to choose this. Let's rock and roll. Go get it. And guess what? You're going to heal more because of that than the person freaking out and over stressing because they needed to eat a certain thing, and if they don't have this or this piece of food touched it, or it's just not fun. And the reason I want you to know, full transparency, the reason I can put so much of this is not just because I've worked with a lot of people that have done this. I used to be that person. I was the extreme of the extreme of the extreme of eating perfectly. Until I realized, like, why isn't this working, right? Because that's not what matters. And so that's really the whole focal point of this medicine is what matters, what makes sense, what works. And if it doesn't work, why, right? And to really start living in a way that's more simple, because the more simple it is, the more freedom you have, right? And you've got to always know that needs to be your litmus test. Okay, so if I buy into this way of thinking and doing, does that liberate me on the end? Or am I always going to be connected to a chart, a fear of, not handling something appropriately, a supplement, a, protocol, and like think through it on your own. Does that sound like healing? Because what is let's just do it this way. What is, like, when I say the most healed, badass version of you, what does that look like? And like, think about it. And most people would go to a person that never had to think about what they had to eat, never had to think about what they could and couldn't do physically, never had to think about what they had to have to feel okay, never even thought about anything, just experienced life and went and did all of these things and just was vibrant in their living and unique in their personality and expressive and, you know, in this confident, contained, powerful way. Okay, would that person want a backpack of supplements, 72 devices, injections every other week? Do those things match? And that's how you've got to start thinking, like, wait a second. Okay, so the promise of this thing that you're selling me sounds fantastic. What does that look like in a year? What does that look like in 3 years? Am I more liberated? Did it create something even greater in me? Or did it become a crutch to some degree and weaken some other part of me that I haven't even thought about? Okay, because that's also part of human physiology that you have to take into consideration. When you give it, the body is brilliant. It's going to compensate and utilize that thing, right? And so there are repercussions to everything that you put in it and on it. And anytime you take a shortcut, you've got to know that you're actually taking the most difficult path when you zoom out. Shortcut short term seems like long term, because of how the body has to respond and the repercussions and the compensations, you've actually chosen to take the longest, most difficult path. And that's hard for us to understand, but when you see it, it will be a game changer, and then it's like, that's not the shortcut. I'm onto you. It is not a shortcut, because what it does is it keeps me in the conditions that created the problem to begin with longer. Because now I'm comfortable, or I'm not experiencing the thing that was going to push me to make a change, right? So that's the difference again between a fix and a change that I cover in that illusions class. It matters, right? If we're going to fix it short term, you've got to know that you're going to have to come back and still do the work to change it if you're ever going to change it, okay? And then just to kind of wrap up and put a little bow on it, you're in a bubble here with me. So if you have chosen or continue to choose, right, to utilize what I call manipulation-based therapeutics, it's not wrong. That's why I get that probably the most. I don't talk about those things because I just distilled medicine down into the bare bone truths, and so then it got me here. So your life is your life, and you don't know how much time you have. And the only thing that should dictate what you do is it should be in alignment with your heart, soul, and spirit, and your desires for what you want to experience in this life. And if that's a little bit of everything, do it, but be at peace with it. So when I come and I talk about these things, this is because I see so many people that are like, I don't want to be in the trap of any of it. I'm tired of being controlled. I'm tired of being manipulated. I'm tired of being in a cycle of fear and anxiety and lack and need and dependency. And so then you end up here, right? In the wild, wild west of whatever this is, right? In this little bubble here with me. And so can you get down to this? Absolutely. Are you wrong if you don't want to? No. That's why I always talk about that real estate example. Are you wrong if you don't want to do what is required to own, $1 billion mansion? No, you just don't want to do what's required to go get it. It says nothing about your character. It says absolutely nothing about who you are. It's a choice, right? So with this, it's a little bit different because you're going to have to experience what happens to a body when you make these decisions, right? But you can still live beautifully, wonderfully, vibrantly, with whatever combination of life that you want to braid together and make your life, right? That's why your life is your medicine. And nobody will ever understand it, and nobody should. I hope they don't. Because if they do understand it, it's probably not yours to the depths of it. So the last thing that I want to touch on real quick before we wrap up, because I'm going to have to head out, is just the your part of this. And maybe we do a whole other live on the your, because to me, that's where we're missing it the most. We're trying to find our individuality and our uniqueness by consuming sameness. to set yourself free, you've got to start washing out. You've got to start cleaning up. You've got to start looking at the stuff that's right here with you now. You don't need an expert to go find it. I promise you it's going to show up at the dinner table tonight. I promise you what you need to handle from any past traumas or any patterns or any psychological loops or anything like that will show up, at breakfast in the morning, before you go to bed tonight, while you're trying to fall asleep tonight. It's going to show up in your relationships, with your family, with your kids, with your partner, with your spouse, with your boyfriend, girlfriend, friends. It's going to show up in your heart on a walk, in your heart when you go to sleep, in your mind during the day while you're working. You have so much to clean up without inviting in more of a mess. So as best you can, start trimming away the clutter. Start getting rid of it. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad anymore. That's really a useless conversation. Because your next question should be, according to what? According to who? It's a misleading question. We don't care if it's good or bad. Is it true? Is it true? Is it true? And then if it is, what are you going to do with it? Do something with it. And then that process starts chipping away at all of the mess. Because most of you just need to clean up your mess. Nothing is wrong with you. And when you clean up the mess through living, that translates into your chemistry. It really does. Everything is so brilliant. That was even like, the conversation that I had last night with the brilliant person that I ran into, because she was just sitting there, and she comes from a totally different background, but her statement was, it's starting to feel like everything really is for you. And I was like, I know. I used to doubt it because I've lived through a lot of really hard stuff, and most of us have. All of us probably have, actually. And so it's really easy to let your mind and your intellect and your psychology be like, yeah, no, even parts of science say everything's going into decay. But when you actually zoom out and you see truly, how is it not all for you? How did your body survive this past hour without you thinking about it? Without you Legoing pieces together to make it work out? How do you end up feeling better usually in the morning than you did the night before? Start asking these questions. They will lead you to beautiful truths. I promise you. One beautiful question has a link to a beautiful answer that makes you ask another beautiful question. And when you follow these, they lead you to truth. And again, you don't have to have an expert for it. You have to have the courage to ask. And then the thing that I can't stress enough is the courage to lose the comfort of your illusions, because it's going to happen. You're not going to get to feel safe it's not even a true safety, or you wouldn't still be trying to find safety. Another conversation. But your perceived safety and illusions is what you're going to have to risk losing. And the mind really doesn't like that. And so that's more of the challenge that you're up against, because the body changes quickly. You've seen it. It changes so quickly. Just how quickly skin can change. And again, we talked about this before, or maybe it was on the subscription page, when you're like, a pimple popped up overnight. Yes and no, but yes. And you can go in the opposite direction just as quickly. But we never think that. We think that the speed is only towards demise and pathology and breaking down. We don't realize that if it can go at that speed this way, it can go at that speed this way. And you see that. I've seen it working with a lot of people, and it's so fascinating and so cool and so exciting to be like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Like, you can have something for decades, and then you change this, you change this, you change this, you change your mind, and then the body goes. And it's the coolest thing to experience. And when you experience, when you're, some of you, I think there's a couple of you on here that have done that. and you could put in your experience of it. When that happens in your life, no one can ever take away everything that changes in you in that moment, because it's a lived experience. And the confidence, you will walk differently, you will think differently, you will act differently, you will choose differently, you will relate differently, you will respond differently. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you feel it, you can't unfeel it. And so even if you don't have that spontaneous moment, your dedication in this direction will still get you in the same place. But you've got to live it. I can't stress it enough. You're going to get more out of doing it messy and, it not looking how you think it should look, but you're trying and you're trying and you're trying and you're trying with the truth, right? Not struggling with a bunch of right answers, trying with the truth. And you're giving massive effort, and you're working on your mind while you're putting all of those rules into action without thinking about them. You're just doing them because they're important. And then you're using your mind in a way that's going to get you where you want to go. That is worth your time. That's worth the investment. And then everything starts getting exciting, because every encounter has something to teach you. Every encounter has something to show you about you. And you get very curious instead of, do the thing that I always do. You change it to, okay, I am starting to do that thing that I always do. I wonder why. What hit? And then in that moment of one little question going in here, instead of I need to go learn about relationships. No, you're in one. You need to pay attention right here, right now. This is the good stuff. This is the juice. When it sucks, when it's uncomfortable, when it's inconvenient, not when it's over and you can go read a bunch of wonderful books and you're not in a relationship and you become an expert. No, get back in one and see real life, because in it, in your relationships now, is the medicine that you need for your relationships. In your body now, in your life now, is what you need to see and change and work with for your body now. It's not pause here, go gather, become an expert, become the world's greatest at all of these different things, bring back all the goodies, incorporate it into a body, and then my body will change. No, you gotta live every moment, every day, and you got to live in a way that actually changes you. Because again, last thing, and then I really do have to hop out. You're using manipulation strategies to manipulate your body out of telling you the truth about your life. If you need to play that over, let's say it one more time. If you're using manipulation strategies, you're using manipulation to manipulate your body out of telling you the truth about your life. Think about that for a second and be like, okay, so then how do we flip it around? You realize the brilliance and the perfection of the body that you're in, and you listen to the truth that it's telling, and you sit there with it, and you lock eyes, and you say, I want to understand. And wanting to understand is the first step. Instead of coming in saying, I know that if a body has a pimple and it's on this side of the body, then it must mean this, or if this is hurting, it must mean that this, or this happened on this day, so no, stop, you don't know. You don't know. So sit down and just be with it. And start letting things wash away, and quit trying to be an expert, and quit trying to find the one thing that's going to change the one thing. Oh, you are swimming full of things. And when one thing touches one thing, it bounces to another thing, and it cosmically shifts another thing. And don't play that game. Just be right here, right now, in the body you're in. See it as it is. This is the truth. Now start the investigation. Okay? What are all the things that can make this? Remove variables, and then investigate further. Right? And you've removed the variables and you're still left with something, then now you know those variables that you've controlled for have nothing to do with that thing. So now look into your relationships, look into your heart, look into your mind, look into your passions, look into your actions, look into your inactions. And that's it forces you back into living. And that's why I'm so obsessed with it. You don't have to go learn, all of these different things that you can be taught in books. This way of living is going to, when you have to listen to your body, and not my body in comparison to 90 million other bodies. No, your body just with you right now. That's never been seen before, because your heart's never been seen before. Your thumbprint's never been seen before. Your unique constellation of experiences has never been seen before. So who are you comparing to? And how does that make any sense? So when you have a pimple, a bump, a lump, it has everything to do with you. Everything to do with you, right? And that's where your attention needs to be, the changing of your life. And I promise you, you know more about what you need to change in your life than you want to admit. But the thing is that usually we don't want to admit it, because the second we admit it, we have to do something about it. And we're massively comfortable in our, very selective soup of discomfort, right? So it's really a courage game of who are you? What do you want in life? And what's it worth to go get it? And then go match that with the therapeutic strategy that you use. Or if you're like, I want to be free, because I also know that there's some part of the human spirit that if it's not free, it can't be well. If it's not completely free and wide open, it's hard for a body holding that to be well. And so I want pure freedom. Then you're probably going to end up here where I ended up. But let it push you back into the living of your life. Let it say, hey, we are somebody that loves dancing and we're not dancing. We're somebody that loves puppies and we have no puppies around us. We're somebody that loves people and we have been health educated into hiding away from all of humanity. We're somebody that loves contrast and experiences, but we've been health educated into conformity and sameness and routine, and you're somebody that wants experience and newness and novelty and deliciousness and electricity, and you're letting rules and regulations and thoughts and stories and fear, education push you into a life that has no flavor. Think about it. Your life is your medicine. Everything that you've lived up until this point is the chemistry that's gotten you to here. You change one thing, you change the chemistry of tomorrow. You change two things, you change the chemistry of tomorrow. And the chemistry has to be reflected into your tissues. So go into it intently. Bring intention, bring your whole heart, and, let it show you you. Because a lot of people get overwhelmed because they're like, I don't even know who I am. I don't know what I like. I don't know what I want. Okay, so if you had never tried ice cream, are you going to be overwhelmed with needing to try a lot of ice cream flavors? No. Go try them, right? And your body's going to be that vehicle to say, hey, this isn't you. This is. Let your body bring you back into the living of the unique, unrepeatable, brilliant, magnificent masterpiece of a life that you are. Because that's what it's trying to do. And when you see it, you're like, fireworks and sparkles and hearts and all of the beautiful, throbbing, fantastic things, right? All right. So we're out of time. I think I covered exactly what needed to be covered in this space today. I'm going to kind of scroll back, make sure we're on the same page, and then we're going to hop out, call it a day. Oh, I love it. Some of you are taking a break to go watch sunset. Do it, do it, do it. And if you missed a good portion of this video, I will save it on this app. I know this app is not user-friendly for these long little videos. I will put it up on YouTube. Everything on the subscription page isn't put up on YouTube because that one's just different. And there's an investment that is over there. And so I want to make sure that I honor that. So it's not that it's just that there's not really a good way to divide it on YouTube yet. But I'm in the works of finding something to work out better than just Instagram. No offense, Instagram. You're so good in so many ways, right? Oh, getting to see some names I know. All right. I think we're all on the same page. For those of you, so then we'll just wrap up at the very, 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 very end because I'm seeing a couple of repeated questions. So Masterclasses can be found on my website. The masterclasses are not your typical do this to heal your gut. It's, again, variables that will eliminate a lot of symptoms that have to do with nutrition, sleep, light, and then stress is what we cover in that energy masterclass. And those should eliminate a lot of symptoms if it has anything to do with those areas. If you do all of those things and you incorporate them consistently, no days off, right? Because it's just living. If you're breathing today, you're following the rules of breathing, right? Because it's harder to break them. You should be following the rules of nutrition, of sleep, of all of those different things every single day, right? And then whatever you're left with, either definitely give it enough time for it to have the repercussions in your chemistry. And then on top of that, then that's when you start getting to know it has nothing to do with those things. That doesn't mean you stop the implementation, you've just removed those variables. Now you got to focus on the other important parts of your life, your relationships, your mind, your time investment, what you're consuming intellectually, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, literally. And that's when you get to, again, it removes variables. That was the purpose of the class. It's not a one-to-one. It's not do this to heal this, because it touches all of it. Everything that we do in the nutrition class touches everything from hormones to cytokines to intestinal cells to all of it. It touches all of you. To try to, distill down and just say this just does this, it doesn't. You're too dynamic than that. Your gut not only impacts your hormones, your psychology, it's all this beautiful dance, and it's not just this like one-to-one feedback thing. It's a swimming dance. So you need all of it, always. That's just being a human. And so those master classes are up on my website. There's also a clickable link here, there's like a circle somewhere, where I have links that go directly to where I host those master classes. And they are long, and if you haven't noticed, I'm intense and I'm dense and I'm very hyper focused on a goal. And that's how the master classes are. So we go and we go hard, and we don't waste any time on get to know me, get to know stuff that doesn't matter. We go hard at this is what it is, do it this way, and there's steps to it. So my Instagram, I hope by now you realize why I don't say 3 steps to change your gut, because we have to talk about you. So it would be clickable and very easy to, get attention through those things and strategies, but it's not true. So we would need to add the truth in, and that's why I just did the master classes, because you have to be the kingpin of any question downstream. And so it's important for you to know exactly how to do that. And so they're teaching. They're not just concepts. They're do these things. These are the steps. These are the things you have to ask yourself. When you get this answer, then this type thing. And so those are the master classes that I have available. Those are my most basic things that cover the most essential things to healing on the physical components. Okay. And then everything else is, the dancing in this. If you're new to me, I would go and listen to everything I've ever put up on Instagram. There are hours and hours and hours and hours of the true medicine. It's not filler. It's the good stuff. The master classes are the practical piece. Most of what I put on here is more of that poetic quantum component, which is just as real when translated into biochemistry. But it's easier to communicate that in that way. So I also have YouTube. A lot of people like that because you can pause me. I think it's funny. And then there are podcasts. I am opening up podcasts again to start those up again. But I have some really good ones from the past. And then we've got some new things coming up that I'm going to let you all know about. And then I think that's it. And for the master classes, it's a 7-day rental, and there's also a purpose behind that. So be very intentional. Don't start it until you're ready to start it. And then the goal is to implement, not to always learn. So learn, saturate yourself, implement it that night. You should change, like when you take the nutrition class, you should change that next meal. You should literally incorporate it that next meal. And for the rest of time, it's yours. So it's not like I'm just going to think and think and think and think. It's let's do something with it, right? So that's the purpose. It's not a masterclass I could have stretched those master classes out into 3-month long, like bite-sized things, and you could make a greater profit off of that because people look at time instead of value when they look at that. But I just don't operate that way, because your time is your most valuable thing. So if I could have given you everything I needed to give you in 3 hours of complete, intense, dense information, or space it out over 4 months, I'm gonna do the alternative. Because if you're the personality that's like, no, give it to me, I'm gonna incorporate it and I'm gonna go, then we could have changed your life in 3 hours versus 3 to 6 months. Same information, it's dense, and we could have spaced it out. But again, I'm always gonna give it to you the fastest. If you're somebody that's like, oh, I'll pace it out, well, then that's up to you. But if you are the person that's like, no, I need a change and I need it now, I'm not gonna fluff it and be cute and do little things that don't really change anything, but they fill time so that you can feel like you're getting more. No, you're getting everything. You're getting everything. It's dense. I know it's dense. I know it's overwhelming sometimes. You can pause it. You can write it down. But the point is, it shouldn't be on paper. It should be in your life. So as quickly as you can translate those simple steps, right? We make it super simple. Put it in your life. Live it, live it, live it, live it, live it, to where you're not thinking about steps anymore. It's just how you think, right? And then your body starts telling you, no, we don't need that food. No, we respond to that food. No, we need to have this. And that's when you get that intuitive way to even consume food, right? So it takes care of itself. That's why it's set up exactly the way it's set up. So I'm not going to fluff it to spread it out to make it's either valuable to you or it's not. When it is valuable, when you're ready for it, do it then. Don't do it and be like, I'm going to start it in 6 months when I can change, or when my kids are back in school, or then don't do it yet. Do it right when you're ready to go, because there's another component of grit and self-reliance. That's when I say I'm going to do something, I'm doing it. And nobody can convince me out of it. Nobody can seduce me out of it. Nobody can, distract me away from it. And that's what I want you building in you too. No, I said I'm going to do it, so I'm doing it. I did it. I'm committed. We want more of this and less of, oh, it's just floating around. I'll get to it. My life is not changing, and the whole point is my life. No, let's do it. When you're ready, you'll be ready. If you're not, you're not. If you never want to do it, that's totally fine too. And that's the design of those things. So that's why they're super dense. And you need to make sure you resonate with me before you do those, because I don't give you an intro into me at all in those. Okay. All right. It was so good to see so many of you. Have a beautiful, beautiful weekend. If something hit, use it. Take the momentum, put it into your life, extract something of value. You gave so much time here. Every minute is an investment of your life. Your life is the whole point. So go and let it enhance the living of your life through whatever you do next. And then I would also encourage you to not just go to the next expert and binge information. Use something, or else this wasn't worth the time that you invested into it. Get a return on it by implementing it into your life, changing a thought and living and doing something literal in your life, not just thinking about it. Okay? All right. It's so good to see you all. I'm going to go probably clean up some puppy pee, but he's so cute. It's worth it. All right. Bye, everyone.